This is a painting of American Minutemen being fired upon by British troops in Lexington, Massachusetts. On the evening of April 18, 1775, Dr. Joseph Warren summoned American silversmith Paul Revere and assigned the task of riding into Lexington to deliver news of an impending British invasion. Revere's attributed phrase, "the British are coming," was in fact not shouted out, as much of his mission depended on a quiet secrecy. In the days leading into this midnight ride, however, Revere had instructed Robert Newman, the sexton of Old North Church, to send a signal by lantern to alert colonists to the route in which British forces would approach, well remembered as 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. 2 lanterns were hung on that April night, warning Revere and his compatriots that the British were using the quicker seaside route. As a result, the American colonial militia was prepared for battle long before the Redcoats attacked. As the sun rose in Massachusetts the following morning, the first shots were fired, the so-called shot heard round the world. "What a glorious morning is this," said Samuel Adams, as the sound of gunfire echoed in Lexington to mark the beginning of the American Revolutionary War. 247 years later, another shot was taken. It's April 16, 2022, the second day of Melee's first major in-person tournament back since the global pandemic. A highly anticipated Genesis 8 brings question marks and exclamation points to an otherwise slow year of Melee, and a top 8 qualifier between Golden Guardian's Nune and a brick wall in Team Liquid's Hungrybox is gearing up for an explosive beginning. Tensions rise in San Jose, California for the fans in the room that know this could be the end of Nune's winner side bracket. While Nune had taken sets off of the godly player in online events of years prior, he sported a healthy 3-23 lifetime set count against the Jigglypuff leading into this event, indicating to some that Nune could be in trouble. Unlike the battles of Lexington and Concord, here was a battle of Falcon and Jigglypuff, as well as the beginnings of a different revolution, dictated entirely by the so-called Stomp heard round the world. In 2009, a crew of players by the name of DBR alongside Boback Vakili organized a Super Smash Bros. Melee tournament at the Contra Costa County Fairgrounds in Antioch, California. They named the event Genesis, as it was the beginning of the calendar year and, in a biblical sense, it signified the beginning of something, an account of the creation of the world, its early history, and so forth. In a definitive sense, the word Genesis means an origin, creation, or beginning. That was fitting, as many of the game's greatest moments were produced from this tournament series. The inaugural Genesis established itself as the largest Melee tournament of its time with 290 entrants, as well as the 5th largest tournament for Brawl. Genesis 1 was also the first national-level Melee tournament to implement the now standard Stage Strike and per-game counterpick bans to their rule set. The tournament featured players from all over the world, namely showing the early beginnings of a group of players called the 5 Gods of Melee, or the 5 people who were considered by most everyone as the most skilled players on the planet. The players, Armada, Hungrybox, Mango, Mewtwo King, and PPMD, ushered in an era of competition where they won nearly every tournament, where at least 2 of them were in attendance from 2008 to 2015. While the 7-year streak of dominance shown by these 5 was incredibly impressive regardless of the context, here's a quick background for those unfamiliar with Melee tournaments. Events are often categorized based on their size, entrant numbers, frequency, and overall weight. These range from something like a weekly on the smaller scale but with more regular frequency, to the illustrious Super Major, on the larger scale but with less regular frequency. Super Majors are often an annual affair, and they're considered some of the most prestigious tournament types in the scene. These national-scale tournaments are often several days long, with an entire separate day of play for top 8, or the final 8 competitors remaining to narrow down to a single event winner. Day 1 is usually the full collective of your play-ins, sometimes several thousand entrants narrowed down to a more manageable bracket number, and Day 2 is that group narrowed down to top 8, which leaves Day 3, Championship Sunday, top 8 to a single winner standing with trophy in hand. Due to this event structure, Melee tournaments typically see a recurring cast of its best players appearing in top 8, like these dominant 5 gods. At the first Genesis, 4 of the 5, that's all of them except PPMD, were in attendance, as PPMD wouldn't begin to make his mark on national scale tournaments until just a couple months later at Revival of Melee 2. And unsurprisingly, all 4 of them made it to top 8. Genesis would birth one of Melee's most iconic rivalries between gods in Mango and Armada, but perhaps most importantly, Scar, the self-proclaimed most electrifying man in Melee, the people's champ, and a Captain Falcon player, would place 5th.
You would have gotten 6th, and I would have gotten 5th, as was intended to happen by the universe. Unfortunately, everything conspired against me. Mewtwo King became Evo 2 King for the first time in history, changing the course of everything, including his recent sentence to the Shadow Realm twice by one man, Hungrybox. And events happened that changed the very fabric of Melee, and I needed to tell everyone this. And finally, 2,400 people are watching, and I have Zeus sitting next to me, and I just want you to know that if history had played out as it was meant to play, we would have sat down, you would have got 2-0'd, we would have shaken hands, and I would have walked away. And the Wikipedia would have been correct, and it would have said Scar 5th, Zoo 6th, and we all could have lived our lives.
Across all of these notable moments, though, and somewhat fittingly with a bronze medal at this event behind Mango and Armada, sat another god, Hungrybox. Over 13 years and 8 iterations of the Genesis Tournament Series, Hungrybox would never miss a top 8. But as the event moved through time, new challengers started to present cracks in the armor.
I was going to the body shop, met an old friend, and he was like, yo, I haven't seen you in a while. We should play some Smash again, because it had been a while. And yeah, I agreed, and that's kind of how it started.
Originally from Nicaragua, Edgar Nunn Chelaby was, like most promising players starting out, a question mark in competitive Melee. He was the best in his home country, but no one had a solid read on his potential until he moved to Toronto, Ontario. 9th and 3rd place finishes at Canadian events The Come Up and McSmashter 4, alongside a popular combo video titled Second to None, garnered Nunn a bit of a following, with many of his fans praising his high-risk, high-reward aggression and often regarding him as a wild card in addition to Melee's most aggressive Captain Falcon player. Nunn began his journey into the upper echelon of Melee by ranking 58th in 2015's SSBM rank, an annual ranking of the top 100 Super Smash Bros. Melee players, which was at the time conducted by Melee It On Me. That, alongside a breakout event at Canadian Major Get On My Level 2016, where he became the first player ranked below 50 to defeat one of the 5 gods in Mewtwo King, resulted in Nunn quickly skyrocketing into prominence.
It made sense. It was like, okay, Nunn, he actually just is this good, and we were just kind of waiting for his breakout performance to really put him on the global radar, if you will.
This was reflected in his rapidly ascending ranking as well, never dipping below global rank 30 after 2015 and peaking at global rank 15 just 4 years later. By 2022, Nunn was no stranger to making top 8s, 33rd at Genesis 3 and 4, 17th at Genesis 5, and 7th at Genesis 7. These placements were solid, and he was trending positively through each event in the series that he attended. But Genesis 8 presented an opportunity to go further than ever before. And who better to be given a chance at glory than Nunn? Or Bond? Or WizzyFan109?
So you obviously are a chameleon. You have a lot of different personalities and characters that you play. You have a lot of friends who come over to your house all the time.
Nunn flew through his first 3 pools matches, taking straight 2-0 wins against Admiral Lightning Bolt, Snap, and Azel to make it to Saturday. There, his top 64 bracket began with a 5-game nail-biter set against Magi, a player who Nunn had gotten the better of in their lifetime set history, but one who always tended to give the Falcon a run for his money. After that, a 3-0 against the recently unretired KJH would bring Nunn to the other subject of our story, Hungrybox. While forever known as one of the gods of the game, H-Box's journey through Melee took a number of twists and turns. Early in his career, he established himself as one of those 5 indomitable players, but he didn't win events as often as his godly cohorts. Many a spectator of Melee's competitive scene would often place an asterisk next to his name. Great and fairly unbeatable, yeah, but perhaps a notch below some of the other gods. Then, something changed. In 2017, Hungrybox won the most tournaments he had in his entire career, 26 events. He'd continue on his winning ways for 3 straight years, reflected in his #1 global ranking for each of those years of dominance, while also becoming the first player to stay at the top for that long. Seemingly at the summit of Melee's competitive landscape and with no signs of slowing down, it would have taken nothing short of a pandemic to stop his rampage. And, well, you know. Given the extenuating circumstances and with rather limited experience in online events, H-Box failed to win a single tournament for the entirety of 2020 and began placing rather poorly by comparison as well. The return to offline Melee in recent years presented Hungrybox with a path of redemption, one where he could pull himself back up to the unprecedented heights he once found himself at in years prior. Genesis 8 was perhaps the redemption Hungrybox was seeking, having blazed his way through pools and top 64 with only a single game loss to the Peach player Polish on his way to None. The last time None had faced off against Hungrybox was 4 months earlier, at an online event called Gallant Melee Open Fall Edition. Even though HBox seemed to waver some during this online era, he was able to take the win 3-2. One of the last times None played against Hungrybox in person was at Smash Summit 9, over 2 years prior in February of 2020, where he would take the set 3-1. This was one of the last offline events the two would play at, with another smaller 5-game skirmish at CEO Dreamland 2020 right before shifting into online play. But Summit 9 was also, somewhat symbolically, the last major event HBox would win before returning to offline tournaments. Given Nune's rather poor 3-23 lifetime set count against the god, even through years of online events during HBox's apparent slump, this was looking like the Jigglypuff's moment to reclaim the throne. 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, and 5 games to determine who makes it to Sunday and top 8 on winner's side.
Those are like defining moments, I think. Those are defining moments in your career that I think personally, I don't think too much of them, like actively. But when I go back and I remember things, I remember at this point in time, my life changed in Smash.
If you've watched any None vs Hungrybox in recent years, Game 1 goes about as you'd expect. None pushes the pace early, and Hungrybox attempts to bring the game back to a speed None doesn't want to play at. None overextends with a double jump, HBox catches it with an up air, and ultimately finds the first stock of the match about 30 seconds in. 10 seconds later, None is awarded with his first stock of the set. At 3 apiece, None speeds up tremendously, pressuring Hungrybox into shield and closing stock 2 early with a down throw knee. From that point on, he doesn't let go. 2 more early percent kills with knee brings the set count to 1-0 in favor of None. As Game 1 ends, another exciting set between Mango and Axe is happening on the next stage over. And in true Melee fashion, everyone takes a moment to stop and watch. Even though per-game counterpick bans were added to the official Melee rule set dating all the way back to Genesis 1, players cannot ban a stage or counterpick to a stage they've already won on in a best-of-5 set. This allows for stage variety, unlike some traditional fighters where character matchups may be affected by factors like stage size, blast zone locations, number of platforms, or platform heights. With Game 2 on the horizon, Hungrybox counterpicks to his classic selection of Dreamland 64. Throughout Hungrybox's career, this stage was far and away his most frequent counterpick, being selected almost 62% of the time in his played sets dating back to 2015. With the added space and ability to slow None down, HBox expectedly evens the set with a 3 stock of his own. In the midst of this answer back from Hungrybox, Scar, the very same player who placed 5th at Genesis 1 over 10 years ago, speaks introspectively on commentary.
Every moment is continuous with the last. You know what I mean when I say that?
Yes.
There's no moment that just kind of like has nothing to do with the past.
Right.
Everything is a product, and so
There's always
sometimes
context.
the full weight of history will bear down on a moment,
Right.
and we call it plot armor.
Friendly reminder that Scar placed 5th at Genesis 1.
There's one question
Yeah. You know the question.
that I've heard more loudly and more clearly than any other. Has to do with my overall placing in singles at the event. The expectations are high.
How high? If I were to put a number on it.
I'll say top 6.
The set now 1-1, None would remove top platform and take the Jigglypuff to Pokemon Stadium. 10 seconds in and the counterpick is looking rough. Hungrybox finds a crouch underneath Nune's grab attempt and gets a free stock with rest. None replies with kills of his own, and this seesaw of stock losses would swing in both directions through the rest of this Game 3, but a mistech from None would spell his demise. Hungrybox now only needs a single game win to take the set and advance to top 8. But it wouldn't be the definitive end HBox was hoping for, or at least not yet. A return visit to Pokemon Stadium goes down to the wire with both players on last stocks, but None would narrowly take the victory to bring this top 8 qualifier to Game 5. 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, and 4 stocks separating these players from a shot at Championship Sunday. The final game for this set goes to Battlefield, and in similar fashion to Game 2, Hungrybox looks in control. An extended edgeguard in the first 15 seconds of the game puts HBox up a full stock, and it's not until 6:52 where None finds the equalizer, but at high percent. At 645, a simple dash attack is enough to push Nune off the right side for stock 2. Inch by inch, Nune begins to close the percent gap. At 543, a callout on Hbox's drift evens the game yet again. But a few seconds later, Hungrybox confirms a jab reset rest to bring Nune to last stock. He finds the answer at 445, and it all comes down to this. With both players on their last stock, Nune's opportunity slips further and further out of reach. He takes a few hits looking for chip damage, and at 425, a back air from Hungrybox promotes the edge guard, placing Nune in potentially his last interaction of the set. But one wild card was yet to be played. Nune, in almost poetic fashion, counterattacks with a Stomp as he returns to stage. The Stomp heard round the world. In the blink of an eye, Hungrybox hits the blast zone, and the set is over. Nune wins 3-2.
I think on the other hand, it also sort of made sense to me in this weird way where I was like, all right, if anyone was gonna do it, like it had to be someone who was breaking all the rules, which was Nune.
Like that first shot in Lexington, it all happened in an instant. Nune's Stomp was a meteor smash, meaning it sends downwards similarly to a spike, but it has a property that allows hit opponents to negate the inflicted knockback. This is called a meteor cancel.
Very explosive character, as we've seen.
Why does he not meteor cancel these?
You need to stop using tap jump. On my mama, I clicked up and tap jump, nothing happened. So I don't know.
In Melee, a player is placed in a 40-frame lockout period anytime a jump is inputted, which prevents them from meteor canceling. Jigglypuff in particular has an automatic meteor cancel mechanism where players can hold up and ignore this lockout window, but it only works if they've used at least one of their double jumps. Because Hungrybox inputted a grounded jump shortly before being hit, however, he's locked out of meteor canceling with jump. There does exist, however, a second meteor cancel window, which Hbox was not locked out of, up B. Similar to jump, if a player inputs up B, they're also placed into the same 40-frame lockout, but these two frame penalties are independent of each other, meaning a character can meteor cancel with up special during the double jump lockout, and vice versa. 99 times out of 100, this is completely useless for Jigglypuff, since her up B, Sing, doesn't help her recover, but it does let her grab the ledge. Like many moments in time, this leaves us with one of the biggest what-ifs in Melee's history. Are we better for it? Maybe, maybe not. This match was just one in a number of high-profile face-offs at Genesis 8, and in a double elimination bracket, both players remained in the tournament at the conclusion of this set. Hungrybox would end up making a commendable run after falling to the losers bracket, eliminating Mango and Laud before exiting the tournament at 5th place. Nune would be sent to losers at the beginning of top 8 after a 3-0 loss to the rising star Jmoog. He'd then take out Amsa in a close 3-2 win before also falling to IBDW, fresh off his Hungrybox win, leaving the Falcon at 4th place. Nune's 4th place finish would mark the highest placement of any Captain Falcon player in the Genesis tournament series since Scar's famous 5th, not 6th, place at the first Genesis. I find beauty in a flicker of time such as this, especially knowing it happened almost exactly the same way 2 years ago, in a Game 5 set at Slippy Champions League in 2020.
Alright, GG's.
History truly does repeat itself.
At the end of the day, it does feel like for some reason Nune happens to be he's like the record-breaking Falcon. I always thought that was kind of cool.
There's some kind of nostalgic feeling that accompanies the passing down of our history. Knowing that just an apparent single shot from an apparent single musket brought upon the American Revolutionary War and ultimately led to the creation of the United States of America is hypnotizing, fascinating, almost surprising. I'm reminded of this nostalgia when I look at Melee and Genesis 8. In this game, I find a profound stillness, something akin to our history, perpetually frozen in time, only advancing and moving with its telling through the years. Our reasons for playing Melee may be different. Some do it for pride, some for glory, and some, like Nune, do it for entertainment.
I mean, that's what makes me play the game. If I didn't have a crowd, I wouldn't feel, like hyped to play the game. Like, it motivates me. I hear the people, even if they're cheering against me, I just need noise. I need to hear that there's people enjoying what they're seeing on the screen, right? And if they're enjoying, that's all I need to keep going forward.
As a player whose tag became known as a backronym of sorts for the words no knee, Nune established himself as not the fastest, not the most precise, but perhaps the sickest Captain Falcon player to ever touch a GameCube controller. He's a player known by many as a wild card, one capable of surprising any given person at any given moment. And at this iconic tournament series, symbolic of the creation of the world of Melee, Nune, unsurprisingly, surprised us again. This is a painting of American Minutemen being fired upon by British troops in Lexington, Massachusetts. A single shot brought upon a revolution. This is a singular frame from Game 5 of Nune vs. Hungrybox at Genesis 8. A single stomp brought upon a revolution. Thank you so much for watching this documentary. I hope you enjoyed it, and much gratitude goes to my patrons for making videos like these possible, especially Avishua Dorian, Shadowball64, and Storm. If you'd like to help support me in making more videos like these, please feel free to contribute through the link in the description. Thanks again to Glitch for sponsoring the documentary, thanks to Scar for placing 5th at Genesis, thank you for watching, and see you next time.
If you had beaten Mewtwo King, would you have received more prize money?
Yes.
Huh, weird. It's almost like you guys got different placings.